Today on The Big Questions, should we be proud of the British Empire? We as a nation have a greater level of pride in our empire than any other European nation. People look back with nostalgia to Britain's imperial past. That's impossible to understand unless we understand the massive fabric of lies, of deletions which has airbrushed the colonial atrocities practiced everywhere we went. Britain. What if I told you that the very wealth that built the British Empire was often stained with the blood of millions? The British Empire was arguably one of the most evil, genocidal institutions to have ever existed, but who cares if you can even remember? There is so much historical amnesia about what the empire really entailed. The fact that you don't really teach colonial history in your schools, there's no real awareness of the atrocities, the fact that Britain financed its industrial revolution and its prosperity from the depredations of empire. British colonialism was responsible for more than 100 million deaths in India. Britain took around $45 trillion out of India between 1765 and 1938. And that's 14.5 times the size of the British economy today. And that's just the tip of an iceberg when it truly comes to the whole damage done by the British in their quest for colonial power. Forcing countries to give up their natural resources enforced by international debt, and what we see is a net drain of wealth from the poor nations into the rich nations. This wealth is not just being taken from other people in the world today, it's also being taken from future generations. When we think of Britain, images of tea, crumpets, and the grandeur of the monarchy often come to mind. But beneath this polished veneer lies a history that is as shocking as it is profound. A legacy of colonial crimes that reshaped nations to their ruined and devastated lives. The highest award given to British officials who work abroad is the Order of St. Michael and St. George. This consists of a star with a little enameled painting, and the painting shows the angel St. Michael standing on the neck of the devil, and the devil is a black man. This image is very similar to one that we've become familiar with. A policeman kneeling on George Floyd's neck as he says, "I can't breathe." And the idea of standing or kneeling on the neck of a black man is deeply embedded in these notions of dominance, of white people over black people, dominance of Western nations over other countries. From the brutal exploitation of resources to the systematic oppression of entire cultures, Britain's colonial past is a tapestry woven with threads of violence, greed, and injustice. One of the recipients of this award was a man called Sir Evelyn Baring. Sir Evelyn Baring was the grandfather of someone called Mary Wakefield. Mary Wakefield is the wife of Dominic Cummings, Boris Johnson's chief advisor, a man who has done more to cover up the record of current events than anyone else in this government. Sir Evelyn Baring was governor of Kenya when Kenya was a colonial possession of the United Kingdoms. And while he was there in the 1950s, he instituted a system of concentration camps, which even his own Attorney General compared to those run by the Nazis. He drove into these concentration camps and fortified villages, almost the entire population of the Kikuyu people, then numbering over 1 million people. Huge numbers died, some of them of starvation and disease, many beaten to death, burnt to death, tortured to death. Repeatedly, men were castrated. The stories of oppression, forced labor, and cultural erasure are not mere footnotes in history. They are the haunting realities that demand our attention. In some camps, almost the entire population of children died. And until the Mau Mau are destroyed, the innocent too will suffer. It was Evelyn Baring who oversaw the creation of this system, Sir Evelyn Baring, upon whom rests the main responsibility of the campaign. We are making progress in their struggle, and we are all confident that in the end we will succeed. He also directly authorized the beating to death of people within those camps. When Labour MPs asked inconvenient questions about this, on one particular occasion, when 11 men were beaten to death, he told the Colonial Secretary to tell the MPs that they had died from drinking contaminated water. Before Britain left Kenya, there was an order sent down, implemented by Special Branch, to conduct what they called a thorough purge of the archives. They burnt crate after crate of documents. One of the orders instructed that if there were too many documents to burn, they should be packed into weighted crates taken as far from the coast as practicable, and dumped into very deep water without currents. They erased not only the evidence of what happened in Kenya, but much of what happened in Malaya. The British troops in Malaya are slowly but steadily smashing the Reds' reign of terror, and they'll keep at it until the job's done. In Yemen, where Britain fought its dirty war, in Aden, we're going to be extremely firm and extremely mean. If anyone starts to get in trouble, they'll just get their head blown off. They'll get the message in time. We remember all this in the context of Boris Johnson telling us that to pull down statues is to lie about our history. The entire history that we are told about British imperialism is a lie. The British might say they don't do torture, but we, the Mau Mau people, have gone through their torture. Are you ready to confront the legacy that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew? Then join us on this journey through time, where the echoes of colonialism still resonate, and discover how the shadows of the past continue to shape our world today as we gradually peel back the layers of this complex history. Before we continue, don't forget to support our efforts by hitting that like button before you. Share with your family and friends to keep spreading our eye-opening black narrative. And kindly subscribe to stay tuned in for more updates while you keep the channel growing. Your support means a lot to us. Now let us dive in. The British Empire at its height was the largest empire in history. It controlled roughly a quarter of the world's population and landmass, ruling over 458 million people, spanning continents and encompassing diverse cultures and societies. However, this expansion was often accompanied by a series of crimes and injustices. Its colossal achievement was further built upon systematic violence, from colonial mass killings and concentration camps to engineered famine and systematic torture. Up to 29 million Indians starved to death under British rule, while we exported and stockpiled millions of tons of food from the country. Former British Prime Minister Winston Churchill once said, and I quote, "I hate the Indians, they are beastly people with a beastly religion." The famine was their own fault for breeding like rabbits. Incidentally, we just put Winston Churchill on our £5 note. Yes, you heard correctly. Their bestiality was glorified instead. In the cases of India and Palestine, British imperial rule ended in ongoing and bloody legacies of partition that have left lasting scars on the nations and peoples affected. Up to 1,000 peaceful protesters were butchered by British colonial troops. The empire was much more invasive and destructive than many people realize. From the Americas to Africa, Asia and the Pacific, the British Empire engaged in a wide range of oppressive and exploitative practices that have had lasting impacts on the societies and cultures of the colonized peoples. To better understand the degree of the heinous crimes perpetrated on humanity by British colonialism, let us take them one after the other. 1. The transatlantic slave trade. Britain was a major participant in the transatlantic slave trade, which involved the forced transportation of millions of Africans to the Americas between the 16th and 19th centuries, primarily to work on plantations. This triangular trade involved sending manufactured goods to Africa, trading them for enslaved people, and then transporting these individuals to the Americas to be sold for raw materials that were then shipped back to Europe. By the 1480s, Portuguese ships were already transporting Africans for use as enslaved laborers on the sugar plantations in the Cape Verde and Madeira Islands in the eastern Atlantic. Spanish conquistadors took enslaved Africans to the Caribbean after 1502, but Portuguese merchants continued to dominate the transatlantic slave trade for another century and a half, operating from their bases in the Congo-Angola area along the west coast of Africa. The Dutch became the foremost traders of enslaved people during parts of the 1600s, and in the following century, English and French merchants controlled about half of the transatlantic slave trade, taking a large percentage of their human cargo from the region of West Africa between the Senegal and Niger rivers. In 1713, an agreement between Spain and Britain granted the British a monopoly on the trade of enslaved people with the Spanish colonies. Under the Asiento de Negros, Britain was entitled to supply those colonies with 4,800 enslaved Africans per year for 30 years. The contract for this supply was assigned to the South Sea Company, of which British Queen Anne held some 22.5% of the stock. Probably no more than a few 100,000 Africans were taken to the Americas before 1600,